Good evening and welcome to your City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 4th, 2020, and it's 7 p.m. In an effort to minimize the spread of COVID-19, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that temporarily suspended the requirement of the Brown Act. Given this executive order, the Laguna Niguel City Council chambers are closed to the public until further notice. Members of the public are strongly encouraged to observe the City Council meeting live online via YouTube live streaming that can be accessed on the city website. Members of the public may submit comments on any agenda item or on any item not on the agenda by emailing to cityclerk@egomez@cityoflagunaniguel.org. All comments received prior to discussion of the agenda item will be read into the record up to the time limit of 3 minutes. Any portion of the comment not read out loud due to time restrictions will still be included in the written record. The City of Laguna Niguel thanks you in advance for taking all precautions to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Madam Clerk, could we have roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Raines,
Present.
Councilmember Jennings,
Here.
Councilmember Genoway,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Minigar,
Present.
and Mayor Davies.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, at this time, I'm going to ask Councilmember Raines to provide the invocation, followed by Councilmember Jennings with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Oh, gracious God, we ask that you be with us tonight as we guide our meeting and we think of the things that we do to serve our community. We ask you to have your ever-loving hand upon each and every member of our community, to keep them safe, to keep them healthy, and to help us to serve in a manner which keeps them all healthy and safe. We thank you for the honor and privilege of serving, and we ask that you stay with us throughout this evening. Amen.
Amen.
At a time when our country truly needs it, I'd ask you to join me in pledging honor to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you want to remain standing, at this time, we're actually going to have a presentation conducted via Zoom. It's one of our first times we've done this, I believe. We're going to be presenting a resolution commending Commander Leos of the USS Stockdale. So at this time, I'm going to have council come on down.
Hi, it's great to see you guys.
Great. All right. We have a resolution here, and this is really important. The reason why I want all of us here is it really is a team effort when we do military support. Laguna Niguel has always been very supportive of our military, and for many years, we've had a great committee. We also have adopted 3 units, and I believe we're one of the only cities in the United States that has 3 units. And the USS Stockdale is one of them, along with the 1-4 Marines and the 140th Assault Battalion. So today, though, we're honoring CDR Leo Lewis. So whereas, and I'm ready to give this to you, whereas in November 2018, CDR Leo Lewis assumed command of the USS Stockdale.
And whereas in the fall of 2018, the guided missile destroyer was assigned to the John C. Stennis Strike Group and deployed to the Western Pacific and Middle East as part of the 7th and 5th Fleets, where they made patrols in the South China Sea, Persian Gulf, and participated in multinational operations. And
whereas, after assuming command in 2018 and under Commander Leo's leadership, the USS Stockdale successfully completed a 7th-month deployment, including 14 Strait of Hormuz transit and a transit of the Taiwan Strait, and upon return to San Diego, completed numerous inspections with high reviews, and then completed an extensive maintenance period at NASCO Shipyard on time during the COVID-19 pandemic. And
Commander Leos has been a strong supporter of the Military Support Committee and the City of Laguna Niguel, participating in our holiday parade, committee meetings, something called the city's 30th anniversary celebration, and speaking at St. Timothy's Veteran Day Luncheon, and has demonstrated, of course, strong leadership, technical expertise, and love of country. And
Thank you. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Laguna Niguel City Council does hereby commend Commander John Leos, Commanding Officer, USS Scottsdale, for his outstanding leadership, commitment, and dedicated service to the Navy and country, and extends to him best wishes in his future endeavors.
So we want to thank you so much. We wish you were here to receive this, but we know you're doing very important work. It has been a blessing and an honor to have worked with you, and I know all of us feel that same way. So if you'd like to say a few words, we'd be humbled to hear them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Quite the honor. I'm very honored, and Jen and I were taken aback when we were asked to do this. And certainly, we'd love to do it in person. Obviously, the last few months we've been unable to do that. We just moved 2 weeks ago to DC, and in that time, we've had unbelievably hot weather. It's like 100 degrees with 80% humidity. There's bugs everywhere, and we had a hurricane. So you guys made the right choice, which you already have. But it was the honor of my life to command Stockdale, honestly, and I thank you for the recognition today. I'd really like to thank you for the recognition and the things you do for our sailors and our sailors' families. And I know that you're also a strong supporter of the 1-4 Marines who had a recent tragedy, and you know the dangers involved with military operations. Right now, Stockdale is actually at sea. They'll be at sea for probably the next 5 weeks with Brandon, who's been up to Laguna Niguel a few times with me, and he's a strong Laguna Niguel Military Sports Committee supporter as well. And they're doing great things out there, but there always is the ever-present danger that these young sailors, you know how young they are, put their lives on the line to do. So I do appreciate you guys doing this. 24 months ago, I took command, or just a little less than that, and one of the first things I was turned over was how great the Laguna Niguel support was, and I had never seen that in 23 years in the Navy. And then once I got back from deployment, and I was able to go to City Hall and do the car wash and do the 30th anniversary carnival, and especially the Christmas Day parade, which was awesome. I was really touched by how giving that the Laguna Niguel community is, especially to our sailors and the Marine sailors and the National Guard Union you guys support. So on behalf of Stockdale, my last official act as a member of Stockdale, I would like to thank you all from the bottom of our heart. Thanks again. Hope you all stay safe, and God bless.
Thank you very much, and God bless your family.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Stay well.
Thank you.
I want to thank our city clerk and IT for setting that up. Again, that was the first time we did that, and fantastic job. Everything went really smooth. All right, that concludes our presentation. So now we return to the dais. We're here, public communications. Our next item is public communications. Please be aware that the time limit will be 3 minutes for each public comment. City Clerk Gomez, do you have any public comments to read into the record?
No, Mayor, there's no general public
All right,
comments.
so I'm going to go ahead and close public communication. All right, consent calendar. We will now move to our consent calendar, items 1 through 9. Do I have any members that would like to pull any items or abstain from anything?
Number 9.
Okay.
And I need to abstain from number 6, which is a contract relating to Molten Niguel Water, where my wife is a director. And on the chance of perceived conflict, I wanted to go ahead and abstain.
Okay.
I make a motion to move.
Second.
All right. I am going to pull number 8 because we do have a public comment for that item. So we'll go ahead and you've got a motion and a second. All in favor to move the remaining? Aye.
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 Any abstain? Any opposed? Moved. Great. Why don't we go ahead then and go with the public communication with item 8, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This public comment is from Michael Saul. He asks that this comment be read into the record for this item number 8. To the City Council, I submitted comments on this matter before the public hearing at the last meeting, but they were apparently not read to the council. While Ms. Gomez has explained to me how the error was made, and I understand and appreciate the staff's responsiveness to my inquiries, I leave for the city attorney the question of whether that is a Brown Act violation that must be remedied before the ordinance can be adopted. I support the adoption of a reasonable permitting program for sidewalk vendors and regulations related to the same. Despite communications with city staff, however, I remain concerned that this ordinance is too restrictive and will prevent beneficial activities in the city. This ordinance imposes equal burdens on sophisticated commercial vendors on our busiest street corners and on small or charitable undertakings like Girl Scout cookie sales in parks or succulent and herb sales at the voluntary events at the Niguel Botanical Preserve. I don't see why such small-scale, short-term, or one-off activities would need to be regulated to the same degree. I think that such activities are a benefit to the city and should be encouraged. Now that some degree of vending on public property is legal, I worry that this ordinance, which is patently designed to discourage large and obnoxious commercial vendors, is an unnecessary burden on community groups whose activities would benefit Laguna Niguel and its residents. These community activities are not the equivalent of T-shirt stalls or strawberry stands or Christmas tree lots. I agree that we don't want sophisticated commercial vendors blocking our sidewalks, but maybe we need a more nuanced and varied approach to protect smaller community-friendly or nonprofit activities from excessive regulations. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And I also, for the record, I would like to read the comments that he did provide prior to the July 21st City Council meeting, and that staff did respond to prior to that meeting. Members of the City Council, I wholeheartedly support the adoption of a reasonable permitting program for sidewalk vendors and regulations related to the same. I am a little concerned, however, that this ordinance may be overly restrictive. At first glance, it looks like it would apply to things like the sale of Girl Scout cookies or Boy Scouts selling popcorn. I've bought some nice plants at the voluntary events for the Niguel Botanical Preserve. Would it apply to that kind of organized event too? I don't see why those occasional activities require $1 million insurance policy or a detailed permit application. I agree that we don't want sophisticated commercial vendors blocking our sidewalks, but maybe we need a more varied approach to protect smaller community-friendly activities from excessive regulation. Sincerely, Michael Saul. And that's all the comments, Mayor.
Thank you. Attorney Ennis, would you like to respond to that, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Yes, Mr. Saul had requested that both of his comments be read into the record. The city clerk has now done so. We have in the record before consideration of item 8, his July 16th email and his August 4th. So now that has been satisfied, and you can proceed to consider item number 8.
Okay, and I do have a question in regards to that. Where is that line drawn when you do have someone, doing Girl Scout cookies, or when we even have someone selling, outside Albertsons or something, compared to being on a street vendor?
Right, I can maybe start off and maybe Mr. Orduña can elaborate, but when it's on private property in front of a grocery store, that's a matter of private property right and decision by the grocery store. And that's traditionally where I think Girl Scouts often do sell their cookies, as distinguished from on a sidewalk, which I think, if I understand correctly, some of the Girl Scout organizations don't want their participants to be vending on a sidewalk. They would prefer it to be on a private property.
Perfect. So they're not included in that ordinance?
No,
Just want to make that clear. Okay.
correct.
Any questions? Councilmember
So
Raines?
I do have a question. So now that this has been brought up, what if like there was a kids lemonade stand or something like that? Does this affect them doing this type of activity in their neighborhood?
Engaging in commercial activity on a public sidewalk, yes.
So it would.
But
Yes.
not on
Be on their
private
lawn.
property.
If it's on a private property, no, but a public sidewalk.
So
So
in
they-
a front yard, it would not,
Correct.
they would not be impacted by that.
Okay, but I mean, a lot of the kids that I've seen are usually like on the sidewalks of their neighborhoods, not necessarily in their front yard. So,
I think it's also important to know that we're not out trying to fine or do
Okay.
things like that. It's a very,
just clarifying.
yeah, we're,
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think
And-
we had a pretty good discussion about,
Right.
how we felt about that last.
Right.
it's a very
last meeting.
balanced approach to
Okay.
the education part of this.
And then as far as the botanical garden, the comment that he made, that's on our city public property, right? So how would that affect them?
Only if they would be blocking a pedestrian path would our ordinance apply. And certainly, if it is in conjunction with an event co-sponsored by the city, then that would be exempt as well. But we do have regulations about vending in parks. They would generally apply. But if it's co-sponsored with the city, that would be a methodology by which we could permit the activity.
Okay, Councilmember Jennings?
Thank you. And if we pass this tonight and the mayor signs the new ordinance, does it become effective immediately?
This version is the regular adoption. It'll be effective in 30 days. You
30
did at
days.
your last meeting adopt a same
Right.
content by urgency, and that's in effect.
Okay. And the next question was, do we have the permitting process available online? Should anybody want to do that?
I'll let Jonathan respond.
I don't believe we have the application posted on the city's website, but we certainly can look into that.
Yeah, I just happened to be walking out of City Hall last week and I was approached by, I think, a resident who was asking me about the process. So I thought I would do what I could to try to make that clear. My hope would be that the day that it goes final, the day that I think the urgency ordinance is in effect now, so that would require the permit now. So I think we should try to make that available.
We'll get that online. The day after
The
the
day
last
after.
council meeting when it was adopted,
Right.
staff immediately started talking to folks about the process, but we'll make sure it's
Right.
available online.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to reiterate again that this was a law that was passed up in Sacramento. This isn't one that came from the city of Laguna Niguel, and we'll go from there. So seeing that we've had all our comments, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to move item 8.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Item moved. We're going to move to item number 9, and that is Councilmember Raines, please.
I just have a quick comment. I wanted to thank the staff for using their creativity. This particular item allows funding to go to 3 of our very important services: Family Assistant Ministry, South County Outreach, and Mercy House. We received funding for COVID that had to be applied for certain areas, and our staff was very creative in finding a way to make sure that the residents who most need it in this time of COVID were able to access support for rent, utilities, and food. So I just want to say thank you for your creative work and your making sure that our residents are taken care of, and just to let our residents know that if you are in need, there is funds available for those 3 items that I mentioned, and please call the city and they can direct you to how to get access to those. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll move the item.
Second.
May I make a comment?
Sure, Councilmember
Yeah,
Jennings.
and I just would like to commend staff also on this, because we are using 3 organizations that have expertise and skill in responding to these needs in the community. They're very well-respected organizations, and we have worked with them on many different levels in the past. So I am glad to see that we are using them rather than having staff do this, because these organizations have the skill to do that. They also have data information that's shared so they can make sure that needs are met. And if one organization can't do it, they partner with another. And they also make sure there's no duplicate applications. So thank you for partnering with these organizations.
Okay, you have go ahead.
I just have one comment that these funds become available after the vote tonight. Is that correct? I just want to make sure that they're important funds. We need to get them distributed as soon as possible.
So the COVID funds, the city council approved in our last action plan, comp plan, we approved a HUD waiver that allowed community development to hold a public hearing and a shortened public notice for this amendment, which included the COVID funds. So staff was able to allocate these funds a week or two ago. So they're done. We were in the process of signing contracts with these service providers as we speak, and the funds will be drawn down, have priority over the normal CDBG funds that are used. So it is in play. People are able to apply, and the providers are able to use these funds now.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving to public hearings. This is a public hearing to consider adopting the Parks and Recreation Facilities Use Policy for the Crown Valley Community Center and Crown Valley Park facilities, establishing and adopting the Parks and Recreation Facility Use Fee Schedule for the Crown Valley Community Center, Sprayground, Valley Plaza, Amphitheater, and making a finding of exemption from California Environmental Quality Act. Interim Park and Recreation Director Rivera, please provide a staff report, and it's great to see you.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight I will be presenting the proposed facility use policy and fee schedule for the new Crown Valley Community Center and Crown Valley Park amenities. To start, I would like to discuss the current facility use policy areas that need to be addressed. In some areas, the current policy contains outdated language that is no longer relevant. While the policy and fees were last updated in 2014, some of the fees have not been updated since 1996. Additionally, the current policy is not user-friendly and can be difficult to understand. Now we're going to discuss some of the areas that have been specifically updated in the new policy. The addition of the Crown Valley Community Center, Sprayground, and Valley Plaza, updated amphitheater usage based on community requests, the removal of the administrative procedures that will be included in separate handouts to the patrons. Other important updates include updated general rules and regulations to accurately reflect facility use trends, transparent and concise definition of user groups, user-friendly formatting, the updating of nonprofit from 501c3 eligibility to 501c to allow greater benefit to the community. The proposed facility use policy and fees were both presented to your Parks and Recreation Commission in March 2020. The commission unanimously approved the policy and fees to be recommended for City Council approval. Here we have the facility use fees comparison chart. This chart displays a comparison of South Orange County facilities using Sea Country Senior Community Center fees as a base for the comparison. The rental facilities compared include those from Laguna Hills, Lake Forest, Mission Viejo, San Juan Capistrano, and Dana Point. On this chart, you can see the sizes of each room at each facility listed. Staff analyzed rooms of similar sizes and capacities to compare the comparison and fee analysis. This next chart shows the proposed rental fees for Crown Valley Community Center, the Sprayground, Valley Plaza, and Amphitheater. The costs are competitive with similar offerings from local municipalities. These fees also clearly delineate the various fee categories, including resident and non-resident groups in the categories of nonprofit, private, and commercial. Developing a fee schedule for these facilities is part of the City of Laguna Niguel's comprehensive fee study, which addresses the core goal of fiscal responsibility in Laguna Niguel's strategic plan. Projected revenue. A new chart has been provided to you in your red folders. Based on the recommended fees, the projections shown on this chart are based upon 6 months of operations with the understanding that opening of the center is based on government regulations. This projection is a conservative look at rental revenues as the market is changing quickly due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the community's changing diverse priorities. To formally establish these fees, a resolution must be adopted by the City Council. Staff has prepared the resolution and recommends the City Council adopt Resolution Number 2020-1337 to establish and adopt the Parks and Recreation Facility Use Fee Schedule for the Crown Valley Community Center, Spray Ground, Valley Plaza, and Amphitheater. Further, the resolution will adopt the Parks and Recreation Facilities Use Policy for the Crown Valley Community Center and Crown Valley Park facilities. This will also determine exemption from the California Environmental Quality Air requirements. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. I appreciate it. Council members? Any comments? Councilmember Jennings?
Okay.
Councilmember Raines?
Thank you so much for this. This has been a long time, I know, coming, and we're all excited that our community center is soon to open. So this is wonderful for our residents to know. One of the thoughts that I had was under our reservations on page 3 of 11 of the policies, we identify 3 separate groups that will be exempt from any fees that are charged. And as we just tonight showed our appreciation for our military, one of the groups that I thought might be something that we add in addition to and create maybe an additional policy where we might allow certain veterans groups to use the facility at no cost. Many of our veterans have served our country, but are now working full-time other jobs. They might not have retired from the military, so they're working full-time, and so their organizational meetings may not always be able to happen during the day when they can use one of our facilities at no cost. So I'd like to propose, and I'd love to hear what my colleagues have to say about this, that we create an additional policy that allows them some time frame, whether it's 4 times or 6 times a year, where we allow them to use the facility at no charge for up to 3 hours. So if they had a meeting or an event or something that they wanted to host. There's only 3 organizations that would fall into that category: the American Legion, the VFW, and the auxiliary. So it's just another way for us to give back to those who have already served and are working in our community and live in our community. So that would be an additional line that we would add in there. And I would ask that, any other comments or suggestions that my colleagues might have. I'm open to hearing those.
Councilmember Jennings?
Great, thank you very much. I echo that. I think we started this during the Carter administration. It's been a while, but Ron, I don't know if you've ever done this before, but I just want to say congratulations. You did an excellent job. I know it's not easy to do your first presentation, and I was trying to not make too many bad faces to make you scared or something. So excellent job, and thank you for that. This is a long time coming. It's one of those things where we have to get back into parity with, we have some of the best facilities that there are, and those come at great cost to our taxpayers, and they come at great benefit to our residents. And I think this is very fair. I looked at this with the eye of, if I was the father of or a family of a bride that needed a place, or I was trying to run an event, what seems reasonable? And they're expensive venues, but they are reasonable in the context of everything else. And the weighting chart that we saw with the other cities, I think, sort of bore that out, not only per square foot, but by the quality of the event that we're having. So I'm very much in support of this. I didn't really have any noodling on numbers or anything, and I think that's just the right way to go. I wanted to take a second, and Councilman Raines and I did have a chance to talk offline this afternoon about this idea, and I want to just sort of explore the concept as I understand it. It seems fair to me that our veterans are a little bit different than some of the other organizations, and that the charges that some might be asked to pay are a little bit different, and they have made a different sacrifice than some others. So I think that's very fair. I think that, the concept of meeting 4 times a year, offering that at free of charge, putting a dollar cap limit on it. So let's say you put $1,000 cap limit on it, that wouldn't require any further action either by staff or by the council. That would limit them basically to the meeting hall type of spaces. It would sort of eliminate the big A and B Crown Valley rooms and the terrace upstairs, which would provide a whole lot of benefit. And of course, as with every event space and otherwise in town, if you want a variance from that, you've got the opportunity to petition us anytime you want to and ask for that. And we've done that on many occasions for many different types of organizations through the years. And I think those are well taken generally in the context that they're given. So my initial sense is that makes a lot of sense. I would think that it should be limited to Laguna Niguel organizations, and the three that Councilman Raines listed, I think, are the only ones I can think of either. So that makes some sense. And of course, that's limited to the priority of whether or not the city has something else going on. So it's not like you could have your quarterly meeting there and it would be just sort of set that way. The rest of the policy talks about what happens if something's in the way. So I think it's very balanced. I think it's very fair. It's a good ask, and it's an organization that we certainly as a council have spent a lot of time tending to through the years in a very positive way for all that they did for us. So with that, I would support the idea of that. Now, let me say this, I would very much like for this to pass and get on the books. And so I'm okay, and I think Councilman Raines might be okay with passing it as it's written, because I'm okay with that. And then make an ask to staff and see back, they could come back with a modified paragraph or a sentence or whatever it will be to take care of that at a future council meeting, which I think is probably more prudent, because I don't see any need to delay this again. It's in good form before us, and I'm okay with that. So with that, I would echo those comments and thank the mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Genoway.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Raines, for bringing that up regarding our veterans organizations. I do support that. One qualifier, though, because Councilman Jennings was talking about quarterly meetings. These groups traditionally meet monthly. And so I would just want to have staff to assess that to see if 10 or 12 meetings per year per those three organizations, how would that impact the running of the Crown Valley Community Center? But those are organizations that continually give back to our community. They're always asking, what can they do? So this is something that we can do for those who have already served us so well. So I would be in full support of that, and it would like staff to come back to us with that, that we could add it on to the current proposal. So some of the questions or concerns that I had regarding this policy were addressed in the email that we received. There was clarifying some questions, and I'm glad to see that staff has taken out the 3 from 501c, because some of our organizations in town are nonprofits, but they're not a 501c3. I know I belong to one that's a 501c4, and it's always a problem when you're applying for something and they're told, oh, well, you're not a 501c3, you're a 4, you can't. So I appreciate staff's recognition of that. One of my concerns, though, and this is something that we have talked about over the last year or so, is the parking at Crown Valley Park. And my concern is how that is going to be managed, the amount of parking space for simultaneous events, because I look at the brand new, beautiful community center as something that our community is going to enjoy. And also, and when you marry it with this fee structure here, that's also an asset for the city. And it's a way for us to not only generate revenue, but for us to pay for the building, but for our residents to be fully using that. And I would hate to see that we have so many things going on that then we cannot rent out the ballroom because there's no parking. Now, I know City Manager Letourneau and I have discussed this, so I would just ask that staff really watch the parking and come back to us with anything that needs to be done so that we can manage that, because we would not want any part of the park not to be used because we're already at capacity with parking spots. Let's get creative, and how do we accommodate full usage of that park, because it should be used all the time or during open hours by everybody. I don't want to see any of it laying dormant because there's other things going on. A concern that I had, though, and I did share this with City Manager Letourneau, are the rates. And they are low compared to the average. And in some instances, they're maybe 25% lower than the average. And this is a beautiful brand new facility. And so I am concerned about that. And I understand that, we do want to start renting it out. We want to get groups in there. We want to get people in there. So, but I would ask that maybe after 6 months after the facility is opened and it's used and things are running smoothly, that staff reevaluate that. And are those rates appropriate? Are we able to rent out the space at those rates? Could we get a little more? Because again, this is a brand new facility and we are looking, it's a asset of our taxpayers. So it does need to derive some revenue if it's being used for other purposes. So I would ask that you come back to us in 6 months with some sort of an appraisal review of the rates, and if should we be doing anything at this point, or even it might be too early, because maybe the first 6 months we don't have that many people renting out the facilities. But I don't want this to wait. We go a year down the road, and then we add a year, we have people who've already booked it out for a year further. So you see what I'm saying? Is let's stay on top of this. And but I appreciate staff's work on this. I think it's really cleaned up a lot of things. One of the things I had asked about were the barbecues and the caterers, so that I know that language is going to be clarified. So, but I'm excited we're getting closer to using that facility. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ron, you did a good job. Congratulations on your interim position. A couple of questions and amplifications. The first one is, what kind of screening process are we going to establish if I'm a resident versus a non-resident versus nonprofit 501c3 or 501c4, or I'm a commercial entity coming from the city of Laguna Hills that they don't have a bigger and more beautiful and modern facility like ours, or from Dana Point? Who's going to be screen the priority?
That is a great question. Currently, with our Sea Country Senior Community Center rentals, we have a procedure in place where an applicant does bring in their driver's license, a utility bill, a copy of their 501c incorporation articles, or their business license for the area they're renting from. So we do have a screening process in place. We put that as part of our filing when we take in the application.
So the Parks and Rec Department is not going to be facing challenges that a resident would be protesting that how come I cannot get the big ballroom that has capacity for almost 600 seats?
Well, the good news is we actually do have two facilities now, so we'll have twice as much.
The Saddleback
Yeah,
deck
we'll
and-
Saddleback Deck
yeah.
and also Sea Country Senior Community Centers. We have
Right.
twice as much inventory now, and we'll be taking those applications in as far as the time base. When they come in at 2:00 on a Tuesday, we stamp it so they get on that list of applications coming in for rentals.
And my second question is, I've never seen any parking utilization for the new center. Do we have a parking supply and demand?
Well,
Because we have to be able to accommodate, I ran the numbers, for 650 spaces at any given peak time. Typically, we're talking about during the weekends, typically Friday nights or Saturday nights or Sunday nights, that we are going to having a big banquet, a big reception, or maybe a wedding ceremony or what have you. And I want to make sure that people are showing up with tuxedos. They don't have to be walking on Crown Valley Parkway to be able to find a parking space.
Mayor Pro Tem Menninger, your point about parking is very well taken. And as we were approaching the completion of the building, Public Works Department was very aware of some of these concerns might be coming up. A lot of the parking demand will very much depend on the intensity of the programming and the overlapping of the programs. So we are very closely looking at a very flexible program for parking where we could ramp up turnover and use of the sites, some time limited or off-site parking, depending on the type of programming that eventually does get utilized at the park. That's in due time, obviously, as the current situation doesn't allow us to intensely program the building. But we do have a parking management plan that we have been putting together to address those types of concerns when the time comes.
And Public Works or Parks and Rec Department is going to prepare those PMP maps so that you can pass out. I mean, we're talking about next year, the earliest, based upon COVID-19 impact. We don't know, but we have to analyze and be prepared for the worst case scenario.
So this is an effort that Public Works is working in conjunction with Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec would lead the programming aspects of the building, and Public Works would then be able to help implement a parking management plan, however that might look inside the park, once we do have some programming to manage.
Very good, thank you. And to go back to what my colleagues mentioned about those 3 military-related support groups, I wholeheartedly support your motion to include those. But then my next question is, what about other organizations such as Laguna Niguel Historical Society, I'm using as an example? Then what's going to happen to those organizations?
You would have to put a formal fee request waiver to city council per event.
Each group has to come here independently?
If they're not listed in the, as a fee waiver group, if they want to get a fee waiver, they have to work through the administrative process for that.
Well, administrative process is different than to come to the city council.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I can add a point of clarification, on page 4 of the facility use policy under bullet point 4, there's a resident nonprofit fee
Right.
waiver eligibility. Those groups would be eligible for that as long as they have a certain amount of meetings that they do pay for, then they do become eligible for up to 4 free meetings per year.
Like a bonus.
Correct. So essentially you get 12 for the price of 8, maybe is a very simple way to say it. And that is done administratively through the Parks and Recreation Director or their designee.
That's a fair
That
deal.
will not have to come to the council.
That's fair. Very good, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ron, you did a great job on this. I know it's not easy, and you really went out to the other facilities and saw what the rates were. I think that they're good rates, and I think the most important thing is we do want the community to be able to use this. And so I'm glad to see this. And I know obviously parking was always a concern. We do have our trolley, which I'm sure that can be utilized through the Measure M2, just like we've done the concerts in the park where the guests can park over at City Hall and then the trolley could take them over, or they can also shuttle. I do a lot of events where, again, there isn't, parking is limited. And that's part of it where either they do that, something like that, and it's through their costs. Or my question is it possible that you could even they could hire, if they wanted, a valet company? Because that's another way of doing it, because you can really stack the cars that route and do something like that.
That's something we talked about being on the preferred vendor list, have a valet service and have a parking plan mapped out for them as well too.
Great. And just have one more question in regards to the vendors. Obviously, they'll be vetted. Are we working on trying to get local vendors?
Correct. We'll work on a preferred vendor list, obviously preferring the local vendors as well as part of that list. And most will be
Fantastic.
required by insurance requirements to be on the list.
Great. Thank you. Do I have any other questions? Councilmember Raines.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so you are going to have a list of preferred vendors because that wasn't in here for,
There'll be a list of pre-qualified vendors and
Pre-qualified.
preferred. We do want to make sure people have the availability to bring other vendors from the outside,
okay,
as long as they meet the insurance requirements and basic requirements to be a vendor.
okay.
It won't be
Uh,
exclusive.
I also wanted to mention, I was just thinking, there's 3 months out of the year where we're probably super busy. We already put some dates in here that no one can use the facilities anyhow, but I was just thinking if we were going to waive any fees, that we might want to have something where maybe like July, November, and December are not months where free space can be given, because that would be ideal time for us to actually rent the space for the revenue. And I think that would, if we could add something like that, I'd be in favor of that. That way they have 9 months out of the year that they can use the facility, but those 3 months, just because they are some of our busier months, that we could have events that might be part of it. Just a suggestion. Thanks.
Just one more comment. That's a good clarification, by the way. And just to speak to Councilwoman Genoway's comments, my original thought was I understand that these groups probably have monthly meetings. And I'm not necessarily sure that all 3 of them having 12 meetings a year, 36 free meetings for the year might be onerous. That might be burdensome. And I thought as an accommodation, 4 quarterly meetings at the nice new building would probably be pretty good. So that's where my head was. Council, and we can all talk it through and disagree or agree or something. But as the staff goes back to try to put something together, I just want to be a little bit more specific about what I was thinking about. So thank you very much. Good point.
All right, question to our attorney then. We made a couple suggestions here. Again, can I just go off this and then we'll just bring this back to the next agenda?
So you can approve it as is, and then
Correct.
we'll bring a separate
Okay.
report to make an amendment to
Great.
this.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve staff's recommendation and approve the adoption of resolution number 2020-1337, adopting the Parks and Recreation Facility Use Policy for the Crown Valley Community Center and Crown Valley Park facilities, establishing and adopting the Parks and Recreation Facilities Use Fee Schedule for the Crown Valley Community Center, Sprayground, Valley Plaza, and Amphitheater, and making a finding of exemption from the California Environmental Quality Act.
I'll
So
make a
moved.
motion.
You got a motion, a second?
Oh, I thought I moved it. Did I move it or did I second it?
People.
Okay.
You guys came together.
We got to check the timestamp. So
Madam Mayor,
Doesn't
did we
matter.
check if we had any public comments on this
Oh,
item?
that's right. Any public, thank you. Any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, so I have a motion. I'm going to go to the right over here with Councilmember Rains, and I'm going to go to a second over here with Councilmember Jennings. All in favor?
Genway.
Genway, excuse me, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion passed. Thank you. Our next item is public hearing item number 2. This is public hearing to introduce ordinance number 2020-208, amending Division 7 of Title 3 of the Laguna Niguel Municipal Code, revising procedures and requirements for bidding of public works projects and finding the ordinance exempt under the California Environmental Quality Act. Finance Director Hendrickson, please give us a staff report.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, we are introducing an ordinance for your consideration to amend Division 7 of Title 3 of the Laguna Niguel Municipal Code. This section of the municipal code governs the city's procedures and requirements for the bidding of public works projects. To provide some background, prior to 1983, local agencies in California were required to competitively bid all public works projects in excess of $5,000. In 1983, the state enacted the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act, also known as the acronym CUPCA. This act provides alternative bid limits for public works projects and simplifies and defines cost accounting standards for construction work performed or contracted by public agencies. In 2006, the City of Laguna Niguel passed ordinance number 2006-140, thereby opting to be governed by the bidding procedures in the act. Since 2006, the state has increased these bidding limits. However, the city is still operating under the 2006 older guidelines. The ordinance for consideration tonight will amend the municipal code to bring the city up to date with the current limits. A chart of the current and proposed limits are on page 3 of your staff report. This update will permit the city to continuously use the CUPCA bid procedures even if the limit fluctuates in the future. This will allow the city's municipal code and purchasing policy to stay relevant and current without bringing forth new ordinances every time there is a limit change. So that concludes my staff report tonight, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Great. Before I go to council comments, I'm going to go to Madam Clerk. Do we have any public hearing comments?
No, Mayor, no
All right,
comments.
we'll go ahead and close that. That way I don't forget that. Now I'm going to go over to council comments.
My turn?
Councilmember
Okay.
Genoway.
Okay. Let's see. There, Director Hendrickson or City Manager Letourneau, for our viewing public, and yes, I know there are people out there watching us on TV. They really are. Could you please explain what the difference in process is for the informally bid contracts versus the formally bid contracts?
Yeah, definitely. So for a formally bid contract, that generally requires a longer time frame, publications in newspapers, a longer process, more onerous on staff, more publications, whereas an informal process can really be done through staff pretty much having a designated contractors list. So for example, if for anything under $200,000, if Public Works identifies the need for an electrical contractor and it costs $170,000 for an estimated cost, under the informal procedures, they can reach out to all of the electrical contractors on this list that the city maintains, reach out for them, describe to them the project. They can publish these in trade journals, reach out through emails and phone calls to interested parties on who wants to bid. So it's really much more of an informal, shorter time frame to get the work done.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
I move the item.
Second.
Second.
All right.
We'll go with
I was going to, let me just read it
Mayor
out
Pro
to you.
Temp. Let him second.
I was going to say, good, there we go. We've got a motion and a second to approve staff's recommendation and waive the full reading, making any amendments to and introduce ordinance number 2020-208 by title, amending Division 7 of Title 3 of Laguna Niguel Municipal Code, revising procedures and requirements for bidding of public works projects, and finding this ordinance to be exempt under the California Environmental Quality Act. Direct that the proposed ordinance, with any changes to it, be placed on the agenda for the August 18, 2020 City Council meeting, adopt the ordinance at that meeting, and direct that the proposed changes to the municipal code also be reflected in the purchasing policy. I believe I have a first and I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Moved. Thank you. Our next item is public hearing, item number 3. All right. So this public hearing is to consider the 2020 weed abatement program authorizing special assessments for unpaid abatement costs. Senior Planner Liz, if you could please give us a report.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and council members. This item before you is the final step of the city's 2020 private property weed abatement program. At a public hearing on July 21st, City Council authorized staff to abate a non-compliant property at 23901 Voyager Lane and keep track of cost. Exhibit 1 of the draft resolution lists the subject property and cost of abatement. The owner of the abated property was mailed an invoice for the abatement costs and notified of tonight's public hearing. The draft resolution for your consideration would confirm the weed abatement cost report for the single property and direct the city clerk to submit a certified copy of this resolution and confirm cost report to the county auditor to enter the assessment on the county tax roll. That concludes my staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments for the hearing?
No, Mayor, no
We'll
comments.
go ahead and close that, and I will move to council members' comments. No
I
comments?
move the item.
All right. So I've got a,
And
I'm not sure if Councilmember Genoway's got into the last two, so we'll put her in since I believe you got in there. How's that? Hey, you know what? I'm trying to balance this out and make it fair. You know, I've got to talk to you guys outside the door, so.
No, he was waiting for me. We do want to move on with the meeting, so.
All right, so I've got the motion, I've got the second to approve staff's recommendation, approve the adoption of resolution number 2020-1338, confirming the report of charges to be placed as a special assessment for weed abatement for 2020 and make any desired changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion moved. Good job with that, everyone. All right, at this point, then we are going to go to, let's see. Yep, we're going to go to council reports. Council members, Councilmember Genoway, I'm going right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have 3 different items that I'd like to talk about tonight. The first one is an occurrence that I think our residents are well aware of, and that we're all deeply saddened by the accident that took the lives of 8 Marines and 1 Navy corpsman of the 5th Marine Expeditionary Unit. This unit is part of the 1st Battalion, 4th Marine Regiment, which is one of the city's adopted military units. They were all so young, and it is these Marines that our community meets at the Military Support Committee car washes. These are the young men with a profound sense of service to others who voluntarily signed up to serve our country and to protect our freedom. The Military Support Committee is in contact with and remains in contact with our liaison, who is the Deployment Readiness Coordinator, to offer assistance to the families and to also let them know that they are in the thoughts and prayers of all the residents of Laguna Niguel. So I know our community has been reaching out to many members of the Military Support Committee to convey our condolences to them, and we will keep them in our prayers. Another item that I'd like to talk to you about is the 2020 census. And in addition to the conservative fiscal policies of your city council, funding for some city programs and projects, as well as much of our ability to address the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, comes from funding provided by the federal government, either directly to the city or to the state or county and then to us. And you've seen an example of this in tonight's meeting. The $194,000 of CDBG funds we received from HUD to provide utility and rental assistance to those financially affected by COVID-19 comes from the federal government. How they determine the funding necessary to meet the needs of our area is information that was provided in the last census. It is vitally important to all of our residents that every Laguna Niguel resident or household participate in the census. The information obtained will determine funding allocations that we will have to live with for the next 10 years. Right now, only about 73% of our residents have participated, which means that more than 1/4 of our residents have not. Can you imagine what it will be like if we receive only 3/4 of the funding needed for certain programs or projects? These are tax dollars that our residents have paid, but will go elsewhere if our population is not accounted for. If you have not yet participated in the census, go to my2020census.gov. If you have any questions, please contact City Clerk Gomez, as she is the city's coordinator for this project. And for those of you who have participated in the census, thank you very much, and please encourage your neighbors to do so as well. The third item I want to talk about tonight, I hope you're all sitting back and okay, is Prop 15. So the Secretary of State has done it again and deceptively named a ballot proposition 15, the Schools and Communities First proposition. What Prop 15 does is to create a split tax roll that would significantly increase the property taxes for businesses and thereby significantly increase the cost of doing business in California. This cost will be passed on to you, the consumer, and increase our cost of living in a state that is already, out of all 50 states, we have the second highest cost of living in the entire country, surpassed only by Hawaii. It would also mean the loss of more jobs as more businesses either move out of the state or close. It will hurt our community. It is not putting our community first. During the COVID-19 pandemic, our residents have become acutely aware of how important businesses are to the health of our community and want to do what they can to help businesses. How you can help businesses is to oppose Prop 15 and share this information with your friends and family throughout the state, and tell Sacramento to balance their budget rather than to continue to seek new sources of funding on the backs of business owners. In upholding the principles of low taxes, your city council has already taken an opposed position on this. And on behalf of OC Tax, I speak to different groups on this topic. So if you would like more information, please let me know. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Jennings.
Mixing it up tonight.
Yes, I am.
I have to start my comments by saying that I need to get invited to more parties like Fred. The tuxedos in the park sound lovely. And I haven't gotten to go. So
I'll invite you next time.
I appreciate that, Fred.
I'll give you a ride at least.
All right. Well done. We may have a parking issue, but we're going to go. So, all right. I appreciate that. I wanted to say thank you to our staff for the robust staff reports. These are not usual summer staff reports. We don't normally do this much cleanup during the summer, and I appreciate how much it takes to get through this. And man, the last couple of meetings have been rather substantive for our ongoing policy. So I just want to say thank you for that. I also want to say welcome to Ron. Thank you for your seat at the table. We are very glad to have you. We know we're in good hands, and look forward to working with you. I've heard nothing but rave reports, and so look forward to it. And if there's anything that we can do as a council, please don't hesitate to ask us. We'll be all in on that. A few things get my dander up more than Prop 15 did when I heard about it. I'm glad you raised it, so if you don't mind me echoing some of your thoughts. I heard the most troubling statistic about Prop 15 yesterday, which was, and forgive me, I don't know the exact number, a substantial number of people under 30 have no idea what Prop 13 is. And so there is an education program that is needed for us to understand that the entire California economic system doesn't work in the very, very short term. And that means it's broken immediately if you undo this, if you unwind Prop 13. And for those who have any doubt, Prop 13 sets in place the property taxes on your residence at the time you buy the residence. It's a rather simple construct of tax law. And that if you keep that for a very long time, you keep your taxes. And the whole reason behind that was to keep people from getting priced out of their taxes. And thank goodness they did that in the 70s, because if they had not, we would all not be able to afford the taxes on the values of what our property became years and years later. So is the case when you're dealing with construction. With commercial property. Those are no different than residences. Somebody had to borrow the money, somebody had to build it, and the tax bases were set there. For years, they've been calling this split roll, which means they're trying to split out commercial properties away from residential properties. And the reason they wanted to do that is because it was just an unbelievable, huge cash windfall if they could adjust those taxes. So imagine most of the buildings around here are buildings that were built in the last 20 or 25, maybe 30 years, some of them, but in the last few decades. When they were built, the tax bases were set in stone, and people started renting them, and the businesses started renting their space and charging for goods. And imagine if we immediately just inflated all of those prices 30 years hence or 20 years hence or whatever the number is. And then all those prices had to be passed down to you, the residents, you, the shoppers, you, the renters. It undermines everything that you know of the economic structure that you've become used to. I can't believe that, one, they'd want to do it. And secondly, I have so much ire for whoever it is that put that name on the front of it that is so unbelievably misleading. So I know, and I'm proud of our city. Long ago, I think it was earlier this year, we've already written a letter to the governor saying, what in the world are you thinking, and why would you ever do this? I'll write all of those letters we want to do, but this is a bad idea. It's bad for our residents. It's bad for our businesses. And it's something that I certainly stand against. And I'm hoping that the city can do what it can, which is scream into the vortex a little longer and see if we can move the needle a little bit. So that was it. I'll end with just echoing the thoughts of Councilwoman Genoway, and I'm sure the rest of the council, about our 1-4 Marines. And this type of devastating thing hits very close to home. Our military support committee gets my love and adoration many, many times, but this time's a little bit harder. And I just want to say thank you for what you all did, and to the families of and the 1-4. We're thinking about you, and I know you signed up knowing the risk, but you didn't sign up for this. And I'm very, very sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Raines.
Okay, I'm going to start with my sincere condolences to the families who have lost the service members that they've lost. I mean, as a parent of someone who is active duty right now and on a ship coming home finally after 200 days due to COVID, this could not be more close to home for me. And I just want you to know that my prayers and my thoughts have been with you from the moment I heard about this, and will continue to be with your families. It's unfathomable to think of the loss, and 3 of those families were local residents here in this area. So I just want you to know that we are with you, we're thinking of you, and we'll continue to have you in our thoughts. With that, I just wanted to say thank you and welcome Ron for taking on the challenge. And I'm sure we'll look forward to some fun and creative things that come from you. I appreciate all that you've done on your first night. Did a great job. So I'm going to have to echo what my colleague said about Prop 15. So many times everybody says, oh, it's just the big businesses that they're going after. Don't worry, it's not going to hurt us. But that Prop 15 affects and hurts the most vulnerable people in our communities the most. An apartment building is a commercial property. That means your rent goes up. Any of the service industry, the workers, they've already been affected by COVID. The last thing they need now is for Prop 15 to pass, and then they lose their jobs because the owners of those businesses can no longer keep their doors open. Prop 15 is just bad. It's just bad for everyone. And I hope that more and more of our residents will be educated, will understand its impact. It's a long-term impact. And I couldn't be more 100% on board with echoing what Councilmember Genoway said about just balance our budget and stop spending money in areas you don't need to be spending money. That's really what we need to be focusing on. So make your voices heard, let our governor know, let Sacramento know, no more. We don't need that, and send them another message. So with that, I just want to finally say it is fire season. Even though COVID is here, it's also fire season. So please be careful. Make sure that you're keeping your things watered and you're not letting things dry out, and pay attention to anything that can light a spark. So thank you very much. And that's it. Good night.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I want to keep it now short to the point. Out of all the WebEx and Zoom meetings that I participated, the only report I have is fortunately, the revenues for San Joaquin Hills, Foothill, Eastern toll roads have been going up. The revenue now compared with last year at the same time after March 15th, 2020 is about 40% below of last year. So that's a very good sign. Everyone was panicking that because of COVID-19 and because a lot of people are working from home specifically and explicitly, a lot of large governmental agencies such as Caltrans, county departments, and a lot of other public agencies have been asking their staff to work from home. We on the board we were thinking that the revenue, we're going to have a great shortfall, but fortunately it's going up, and again, it's 40% below the same amount as last year, which is a good sign. And the agency can sustain itself until the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to just jump on real quick with Prop 15 as well. As we talked, what's really concerning about this is, again, not only does it hit commercial and residential, but they're splitting this. And if this happens to pass, I will guarantee you in 2022, you will see a residential property put on there, because that's really the last tax that they have to come after. And for those that are 30 years old and 40 years old and weren't familiar with Prop 13, if that happens, you'll never be able to probably afford to have a house here. And that's how important that is. So as they put in the statement, Prop 15 is for community and schools. Basically what it is it's a tax towards consumers. And if you have questions, I'm going through all the props. We have 12 props that will be on November's ballot. I will be basically describing exactly what they are and what the title says so that people have a better understanding. For me, this is all about educating and informing people so they have a better idea of what they're voting on. Nobody needs to tell someone how to vote. They just need to be able to have the true facts so that they can make common sense decisions. So that's pretty much there. And Ron, again, welcome. I know you're going to do a fantastic job. I look forward to seeing all the wonderful things you're going to come up. I know you're very creative, so we appreciate that as well. And for that, I'm going to go ahead and send it over to our city manager.
Great. I have two reports for you this evening. One, within the next week, I'm going to be providing you in writing, and we'll put it on the website for the community, an update of all of our implementation action plans to achieve the goals that you set forth in our strategic plan. And in November, at the 1-year mark, we'll come back and do a formal presentation at the council. But I want you to see what we're working hard every day to accomplish those goals. And we've accomplished some, others are in process or ongoing. And I'll provide you'll have a status report in there. And then a few of them, obviously, because of COVID, we had no idea when we adopted the strategic plan that would happen. So because of either the things that have changed and we're not able to do certain things, or because of financial reasons, a few things have been delayed. So you're going to have a report within the next week, and we'll put it on the website for the public to see as well. And then speaking of websites, I'm happy to announce that on August 17th around noontime, we are going to launch a new and very much improved version of our website that is user-friendly. And you're going to be able to find everything. We're going to be able, one of my frustrations is not being able to put some hot topics right on the front page of our website very easily. We're now going to be able to do that. So with one click, Things are going to be easier to find. And so very excited about this. We've been working on it for several months, and August 17th is the day around noontime. So more to come about that, but very happy about that.
I want to thank staff, and I know our council does too, for all the hard work you've been doing and kind of, coming here, having to go back home and just working with everything, keeping the city up and running as you have. We greatly appreciate it. So in regards to adjourn tonight, we will adjourn the city council meeting with a very heavy heart in the memory of the 8 Marines and 1 sailor that tragically lost their lives due to the tragic training accident that took place last week off our coast. The grief we feel and share is exceptionally deep, as the city of Laguna Niguel has sustained an adoptive relationship with the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines Regiment, of which the brave servicemen were a part of. We ask that you keep the families of those brave men in your thoughts as we remember and honor their ultimate sacrifice today and forever. We are now adjourned at 8:08 p.m. Thank you and stay well.